In the past 10 years, I bought over $50 million worth of real estate without using any of my own money. I started from scratch 10 years ago, and now I own over 300 rental properties. In fact, from May of 2020 to October of 2021, I bought $15 million worth of real estate in that 18-month time frame. At the exact same time in doing this, I was growing a flipping company to over 300 properties a year and an education company to over 1,800 students and over 3 million followers on social media. Now, I know that all may sound like a flex, but I promise it is the exact opposite of that. In growing and scaling that quickly, I screwed up a ton, and that's why I'm making this video. I made some little mistakes and I made a ton of huge mistakes, and I want to go over the top 5 issues or nightmares or obstacles that I came across in growing and scaling those companies too quickly. Number 5 is going to be a quick one, but is by far the worst. If you appreciate some transparency on social media and not just fluffy posts about all the good things that may or may not have happened, hit that like button and I'll make more content like this. Number 1, we bought some bad deals. When you're growing and scaling so quickly, you're not able to underwrite things as thoroughly as you did when you only had a couple things on your plate. That, coupled with the fact that my ego got a little bit too big, I bought a couple bad deals that are going to cost me some pretty good amount of money. Up until a couple years ago, pretty much everything I bought worked out really, really well. There was plenty of equity, there was cash flow, and we made really good money on pretty much everything we bought. Of course, there were a few stinkers in there, but overall, we were looking really, really good. And I think that was part of the issue. For example, we bought an apartment complex in 2021 that we thought was going to be a home run. It was cash flowing 50 to 60 bucks a door at the price we bought it at, and we saw that there was upside to raise rent and get a little bit more efficient with expenses. So we are going to be able to buy this creatively using none of our own money and start out cash flow and grow it even more from there. However, with some of the other issues I'm going to talk about, we have been losing about $3,000 a month on this specific apartment complex because we bought a bad deal. The property is not bringing in near as much income as we thought, and the expenses are higher than we thought. So we just assumed everything was going to work out, and that's not always the case. Another example is we bought a self-storage facility. Now, I do own 3 self-storage facilities, but I would not call myself an expert in the self-storage space. Hence, I don't have a course around being a good self-storage investor, because in fact, I am not that. This is one of those things where probably stick to what you know and what you like. We bought some self-storage facilities. We bought 3 of them. One of them does okay, and the other 2 actually lose a bit of money every single month. And again, everybody buys bad deals, but before we were scaling like crazy, we weren't buying bad deals. Now, the market and interest rates have had an effect. I don't like to put too much onus on things from the outside affecting if I create wealth or buy a good deal or not. The bottom line is it falls on me for not underwriting these deals properly because we were scaling too much. And I think this is a pretty common thing that a lot of companies go through when they scale. When they're younger and they're hungrier and they're underwriting everything and it's life or death every single deal, you underwrite it like crazy. When things have been working out and maybe you don't underwrite a couple deals and they still work out, you just assume that's the way to do things. Nope. We've gone back to the basics, and now we have a crazy underwriting formula and a crazy underwriting process on every deal we buy. Number 2 is cash management. We didn't even understand that we were losing money on that apartment complex until we owned it for about 8 months. Now, you may think, duh, how do you not know that you're losing money on an apartment complex? But again, we have pretty complex books, and our accounting department was not huge at this time because we didn't need it to be huge. We scaled quicker than our accounting and finance could keep up with. So once we got our accounting department up to snuff, we were able to see what specific properties we were making money on and what specific properties we were losing money on. Losing money sucks, but the other bad part about poor cash management is we had to go back to private lenders on some of our bigger deals and ask for more money. Just think of it this way. We were doing house flips, we were doing wholesales, we were buying rental properties, buying apartment complexes, buying self-storage facilities, and we were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars of money every single month from private lenders to put a down payment on a property, to pay for rehab. So we had money going in and out, and the account wasn't really shrinking, so we weren't really worried about it. But a lot of the money in there was money from private lenders that was spoken for, so it wasn't really profit. Once we got down to the brass tacks and actually saw what was happening, we very quickly saw that we need to raise more money on specific deals than we had already raised. Again, part of this goes back again to the underwriting. Like I said, a lot of these are linked. It's not the end of the world to ask more money from private lenders on some purchases that you have. However, it just was so far down the line that 6, 8, 12 months down the line, we had to go to these private lenders with our tail between our legs and say, hey, we actually need more money for this investment. A couple of these specific deals were still good deals, but we didn't underwrite them properly, and we need another $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. Some private lenders said, sure, we'll do it. Some said, no, we're going to stay where we're at. So we had to come up with the money ourselves through other lending sources, lines of credit, and our own money. Number 3, vacancy challenges. When you have all these things happening, you have all these balls in the air, all these plates you're spinning, certain things don't get the attention that they need, and tenant management was one of those things. We always take care of our tenants, that's top priority, but tenant management as far as tenant placement and getting tenants in our property went to the wayside. We usually have about 95% occupancy at a minimum, and that's what we use to underwrite all our deals, meaning we are assuming a 95% occupancy across the board. If we get less than that, then the deal won't pencil out how we thought it would, and that's what happened through most of our portfolio. I remember the days when we were at 97, 98% occupancy consistently, but that's before we scaled. From the end of 2020 until recently, our occupancy rate on our single families was about 93%, which is not good, and our multifamily occupancy was about 91%. So not only were we not collecting as much money, the deals that we underwrote at 95% were not cash flowing how they thought we would, and we just weren't focusing on it because we were doing so many different things. And while we do have 45 employees, they are all wearing multiple hats because we're still a pretty small company, and we lost focus on that. Now, the good news is we figured all of this out a while ago when we got our accounting in order, like I talked about in the very first issue. So we figured this out, and we made a huge focus on this. And as I'm creating this video, our single family occupancy is up to 96.6%, huge improvement, and our multifamily occupancy is up to 96.3%. So things are looking really good. We're cash flowing again, and some of these deals that were kind of iffy are starting to look like good deals again because we're collecting more money. Number 4, big projects are underwritten differently than small projects. As I said earlier, pretty much everything that we bought worked out for the longest period of time, and then we got into some bigger deals. Like, for example, we bought a 42 pack of houses. 42 houses all in the same neighborhood. We raised the money for the 20% down from a private lender, and then we raised another $500,000 for the actual rehab of about half of the properties. They were all in pretty good shape, but as we dug in, we noticed that they needed a lot more work than we thought. So we didn't underwrite them properly. We didn't have time to go through every single property before we bought it with a fine-tooth comb and figure out every single issue. As these properties are becoming vacant or as tenants stop paying, we went in there and did some rehabs and some repairs, and we saw that we were well short. We actually ended up spending about $1.2 million, so $700,000 over the budget, which again, we had to go back to our private lender with our tail between our legs and ask for more money. He gave us a little bit more, and then we had to go to the bank to get even more money to finish these rehabs. Now, this one we bought at a great price, so there's a ton of equity, so it's not as big of a deal, but it was still rather annoying to have to go through all that. And we didn't even account the fact that when we were rehabbing these properties, we were not going to be collecting rent. We assumed we'd be rehabbing 2 or 3 at a time, so rent wasn't a big deal. But there were points and times in the past 2 years where we had 10 of these properties that we were working on, putting money into, and not collecting rent. Again, it may seem obvious, but when you're running and gunning, you don't think of all of these little things, and we got into a little bit of trouble for a little while. Now again, fortunately, this was a really good deal. We have about $3 million worth of equity, and we are cash flowing positively now after refinancing, getting everything buttoned up, but it was just way harder than it needed to be. And also, we bought a hotel down in Branson, Missouri, where we did something very, very similar. We got loans from a few different private lenders to buy it and rehab it, and we got a loan from a bank. As we started to do rehabs, we had certain things come up that we just didn't know were going to come up, so they weren't necessarily avoidable, but again, we didn't have the time to underwrite everything perfectly. Like, for example, the property's on a well, and the previous owner took the water coming out of the well and went around the filtration system because it was broken, and the water that was coming out of the taps was actually very poisonous, so we had to spend about $50,000 to get the filtration system up to snuff to make the water safe for people to shower in and actually drink. So things like that popped up, and again, not all of it's avoidable, but when everything is going everywhere and you're trying to figure out where you are, these things end up taking a lot longer than they need to. See, I told you I was going to be 100% transparent here. Again, if you like that, they haven't hit the like button, hit it. And the 5th issue, which is the most annoying to me actually, is we are not scaling right now as we would like to be scaling because of all the things that are happening. We're trying to kind of reset and rebase and ready to scale again. This year in 2024, we're going to add about $2 to $3 million worth of rentals which may sound like a lot, and I guess it is if you look at the bigger picture of the broader audience. However, we have not bought $2 to $3 million worth of real estate since 2017. So 2018 through 2023, every single one of those years, we have bought at least $5 million worth of real estate. So we have not been able to grow and scale as much as we planned because we're dealing with all the craziness of scaling too quickly. Now, looking back, would I change a ton of things? Probably a few things. In general, we have learned lessons that we would not have learned without screwing up. And talking to a ton of other successful entrepreneurs, I've never talked to one entrepreneur that's line's been like this as far as success. There's ups, there's downs, there's valleys, there's peaks, there's all of those things that I think are very normal and natural for business owners to go to that scale to a certain level. I'm just happy we're diversified and we're in real estate, that we were able to screw up a ton and still not really have to fire any employees or cut back on anything specifically personally, because real estate allows you to insulate yourself, and you're diversified within real estate. You can screw up a lot and still at least be okay. Now, of course, the goal is not to screw up, but you can and still usually make it work. If you appreciate me being transparent and showing you all of our issues, again, hit that like button, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. On this channel here, I host talking head videos like this. I go live and teach you things on the whiteboard behind me. We host our podcast here. Lucas and I, my business partner, jam every Wednesday live on YouTube. And then also we have guests every single Friday, some of the best guests in the country. So you're going to want to hit that subscribe button if you're watching at this point. I promise to provide more value than anybody else on social media. Now, I may not be as buttoned up as everybody. I may not be a news anchor type of style of presentation, but I'm real, I'm authentic, and I'm telling you things that are good and bad that I actually do every day, not just talking about theoretical things that may or may not happen. Anyways, I'll catch you on the next one.